Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Critical Focus channel and another episode on the countdown to EMBERGARD. And I'm going to talk about the article that dropped, I think 2 days past, talking about the different decks in the EMBERGARD box. And I'm going to focus on the Flex deck and the Mastery deck here. And these were the ones not featured in the live stream that I covered in the previous video. So for more information on those decks, go back and watch that previous video. So let's start off with the Mastery deck. Straight off, it is mentioned that plot cards are still a thing and is indeed included with the Mastery deck. Regardless though which deck you use, with a plot card or without one, as mentioned in the last video, you will still need to declare what deck you are using in the Warband reveal step. This particular plot card though is called Countdown to Cataclysm and goes along with another card included in the deck, the Countdown card. At the start of the game you place a generic token on Step 1 of that second card mentioned. Certain things will advance the token on that card, namely the first friendly fighter to die in each round, and then at the end of the round, after the last power step, before scoring, you also advance the tracker 1 step for each feature token without an enemy fighter. So right off the bat, I think this seems to be like a deck that would go well to mix with the Hold deck for the Nemesis format, if that is indeed possible in that format. We haven't really gotten any new information on Nemesis yet, but might well by the time I release this video. Then, depending on how many steps you've advanced your token, your Cataclysm value will be somewhere between 1 through 4. So yeah, this is a little side game similar to the one seen in Daring Delvers previously, which I had a lot of fun with, so I'm optimistic so far. And then of course there's a bunch of cards in the deck that's gonna interact with the value of your Cataclysm count. First up is Growing Concerns that debuffs enemy fighters' move with the equivalent of your Cataclysm value. That's a 1 action step effect though, which was previously called activation step only, so not a massive effect until rather late in the game, I guess. Next one is Sunder the Realm, which potentially pings fighters within 1 hex of neutral territory. By the way, this does then confirm that the new wording is indeed neutral territory now. Anyway, the effect is you roll X amount of attack dice for each fighter within 1 of said territory, and on the roll of a hammer or crit, that's 50% for each die, they get pinged. That is quite an insane ping card once your Cataclysm count is even just 2 or 3, I reckon. Obviously it does damage your fighters as well if they are within 1, but time it right and this is a rather brutal ping card. I think ping damage is a thing I hoped to see mostly done away with, and this has me already a bit concerned, although final judgment must be reserved of course, so I hope we don't see too much ping in this new edition. Next one is the Bringer of Doom upgrade with a search ability that triggers on this card when it is discarded during a combat phase to advance your tracker 1 step. Obviously one way is to use it on the Bomb Brat as seen in the picture here, basically on a fighter that is likely to see an early demise, or as a kind of a kill me and I get stronger discouraging card on a fighter that you actually want to keep around for a bit longer. The End is Nigh is next here, and we see a fighter, if I remember correctly, we haven't seen on the card art before, with Sondara, which makes me very happy of course. I loved painting and playing her in the current edition. This is another double-edged card effect that can, with clever timing, still be quite a neat little trick. It means that each player rolls a dice equal to their Cataclysm value after each action step, or just 1 die if they don't have such a value, and discard 1 card if any swords or crit comes up. If this card becomes a staple or not in build formats remains to be seen. It's really only somewhat reliable once you reach stage 3, as swords and crits together on 1 dice is only 33%. So I am upfront a bit dubious on its effect. Then we get to see a couple of objectives, switch keys of the Cataclysm mechanic, with collateral damage first up being a very easy objective for advancing your tracker 1 step as a result of one of your fighters dying, or for any reason if you are indeed the underdog. Sure, Stuff have more health now, but stuff will still die, especially good for larger warbands with a lot of killable fighters. Too close for comfort is another search scored after your opponent's power step if each friendly fighter is within 2 hexes of enemy fighters. I think it's really good that it's after the power step as opposed to opponent's action step, as you will also then have time to use push tech or other stuff to fulfill the conditions on this card. And I think this card is especially solid for smaller warbands, of course. Spread Havoc next, featuring one of the zombies from the Exile Dead, which simply rewards you an amount of glory equal to your Cataclysm card value. About the most low effort condition since Need for Speed, I guess. It tops out at 2, but if holding on to scoring objectives is still a thing, you might even want to consider waiting with scoring this until the second end phase, if you happen to draw it in turn 1. That is it for the Mastery deck, and I think it looks really interesting, and I am looking forward to delve into it further. And on the topic of delving, let's check out the Flex deck. The Flex deck is called Pillage and Plunder and evolves around holding and flipping delving treasure tokens, which also here is confirmed to turn them into cover hexes, so nothing really new there. We also learned in the stream that getting staggered does not negate guard tokens and vice versa. You can indeed have both tokens at the same time. Let's look at the cards featured here. First up is Explosive Charges, which is a domain card, which gives +1 move to friendly fights while charging. Perfectly solid, I guess, not terribly interesting. We've seen many similar cards before, of course. Frenzy of Greed is next, which is an upgrade featuring the little monkey with a knife from the Black Powder's Buccaneers. Always happy to see my favorite Simeon, of course. The effect is immunity to cleave and ensnare, which is pretty solid now that crits aren't the all-powerful thing that it was in the past. Also, this fighter cannot be given stagger tokens. And this is really interesting. An old FAQ namely stated that if a fighter could not, for any reason, become staggered, that fighter also could not delve feature tokens. So this might suggest one or two things, given that this card is featured in a deck heavily evolved around flipping tokens. A, flipping feature tokens no longer staggers fighters, or B, being immune to being staggered tokens no longer prevents flipping. Do note, sorry to go on a nerdy tangent here, that the card does not give you immunity to the staggered condition per se, only to being given staggered tokens. So if we take an example from the past where the fighter with the Hungering Parasite made every fighter within 1 hex staggered, this card would still not negate that effect, as that one didn't hand out tokens, it simply gave you the effect. But anyway, let's move on before I go on for too long on a single card, I guess. Still, as I said, a pretty solid card. Is it worth 2 glory though? Maybe, maybe not. A very diplomatic answer there, right? Next up is a couple of objectives. First up, Desolate Homeland. Sounds a bit like Sweden in the winter. 1 glory end phase for 1 or fewer treasure tokens in friendly territory. 1 glory only, but very easy, especially in a flip-heavy deck environment. Claim the prizes next with a search for delving over yonder, in enemy territory that is, or even in friendly territory if you are indeed the underdog. Maybe it's a trend, or maybe it's them just showcasing very simple cards, but it seems to me like pretty much all objectives I've seen so far, except Annihilation, I guess, have been dirt easy. I sure hope there's some more tricky ones in there as well. Next one, and the last one here, is Strip the Realm. Maybe this is the hard one then. 3 glory for no treasure tokens on the battlefield. It obviously encourages flipping, or if no enemy fighters holds any treasure tokens. I mean, the second condition only, especially versus smaller warbands, it's not a hard thing to strive for. I think that's really solid for 3 glory, honestly. So yeah, that is it for today. I think there's some interesting stuff in both of these decks. I sure think they are already more interesting than both the previous decks we've seen so far. So do let me know in the comments what your feelings are on these 2 decks. Always interesting to interact and hear from you guys. So yeah, take care. Have a great rest of your day. Bye. I would like to thank all my wonderful members that support my work. Every penny goes straight into new minis, new paint, equipment and whatnot. Your support means a lot. If you are not yet a member, what you can expect from a future membership is access to the member Discord, early access to videos, member deck review, and just generally a greater influence on the content I put out. I will surely add more features to the member side of things as I progress as well. Furthermore, I would also like to mention that if you are looking to buy Warhammer merch, you can now support the channel via clicking the link provided in the description of the video to help the channel with a small but valuable kickback without any extra cost for you by making any of your purchases via the link. Lastly, don't forget to like the video. A small click for you that still means a lot for me and the elusive YouTube algorithm to get the video into a more favorable position amongst the very steep competition out there on the YouTubes. And do feel free to comment as well. I'm always interested in hearing what you have to say. Any engagement is welcome really, and I always strive to answer any comment I do.